Welcome to Pivot and Passion. I'm your host, Stephanie Cully, and I'm here to help you follow your true purpose. My goal is to help you build unshakable confidence and showcase your strengths. Each episode is filled with inspiration and tips to help you in your career and personal life. So grab your morning cup of coffee or your evening tea and let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode. Today, I'm talking about an experience in a leadership program that I did over the past year. A year ago, I decided that I wanted to invest in myself and I joined the Forge Leadership Program. It's common for me to want to invest in myself, and I periodically look at different leadership programs or different coaching programs that are going to help get me closer to my goal. The reason that I knew that this was a good program for me was because I actually met Chris Williams, the founder of The Forge and the founder of the Badass Agile podcast many years ago. We began working together and built out a program called Agile Sidekick, which is a course to help people land the job more quickly. During the time that I've gotten to know Chris, I know that he has a lot of great work and I really admire his leadership and the work that he does. He also has a strong mindset, which is something that I desired. I began to learn more about this immersive leadership program and decided that it was the program for me. If you're not familiar with the Forge program, it's a program where you learn different lessons on topics like vision and intention, influencing and coaching, having focus and discipline. And the other really cool thing is that you have a swim buddy that actually holds you accountable and helps you to apply the lessons each week by doing homework in your personal and in your professional life. I have to say that this program has completely changed me. I have more confidence in the goals that I set out for myself, and I now understand how to better influence people more effectively. There are so many lessons that I've learned from the Forge, and that's what we'll be covering today in this episode. And before we dive into this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments that I've been able to achieve, which I attribute to my success in the Forge program. So I started this program in June of 2023, and before joining, I was really timid about leaving my full-time job and going into my business full-time. So with the help of talking to our coach, Chris, I was able to overcome some of these fears and decided, yep, it's time for me to leave my full-time job, put in my notice, and I took my company full-time in June. So immediately that was a huge goal of mine and something that I had been looking to accomplish for a while. Some of the other things took me a little bit longer to accomplish, but I'm still really excited, despite that it took me about a year, that I was able to successfully launch some other things. One of the top things was actually this podcast. I had such a fear of creating my own podcast, although it was something that I wanted to do. And I had talked about doing it for years, but it wasn't until I was in the Forge program that I was finally able to do it. Another thing that I had thought about just periodically was whether or not I wanted to launch my own book. And I ended up successfully launching my own book by going through the program and having that accountability piece and some other things that we'll talk about in today's episode. And last but not least, I know that it sounded like it was a quick fix that I was able to have a conversation and go full-time into my business. This was actually something that took quite a bit of courage, and it was something that I had been working on before the Forge program. But something that I think I wouldn't have been able to do as easily is I pivoted my entire business. So I originally was working with Scrum Masters for 3 years, and I think if it wasn't for the courage that I had and really the dedication that I had in the Forge, I wouldn't have been able to pivot my business to more general career coaching so quickly like I did in January. So now that you know a little bit more about the Forge and you know some of the accomplishments that I got out of the Forge, let's go ahead and dive into some of the tips that I got by going through this program. The first thing that I learned was about setting vision. And this is a really great aspect to focus on in the beginning of the program because it helps you to understand that without knowing where you're going, you're probably not going to get very far or you're not going to go in the right direction. So Chris taught us in the program that having a vision is kind of like having a GPS, and you want to set your GPS coordinates so you know exactly where it is that you're going. This is something that I didn't even realize that I needed. Of course, I knew that I needed a sense of direction, but I didn't know that having a vision statement would make it easier for me to accomplish my goals and to make sure that I was focusing on the correct things. While we were setting the vision, we were holding ourselves accountable, but we also had those accountability buddies to bounce ideas off of and to hold us accountable to make sure that we were actually doing the things that we set out to do. So I'm going to go ahead and read the vision that I have for myself. The vision that I have for myself is that I empower others to build unshakable confidence and showcase their strengths. I enable them to find fulfillment and achieve their dreams. The reason that this vision has been so important to me is it gives me something to look at every day and to focus on and know if I'm working towards something, does it align with my vision? And if it doesn't, I have to start to question, is this something that really needs to be done? So my question for you is, do you have a vision? And if not, do you know where you're heading? If you don't have a vision, it's something that I highly recommend doing. It's something that you may not even know that it's important to do, but it's going to give you a lot more direction and heading where you need to go. If you want to take some tips on how to do the vision, what I would do is I would start brainstorming and thinking about what are the things that are important to you, what's the impact that you want to make, and why. This will give you a sense of direction and help you understand where it is that you're trying to go. And this leads me into my next point, which is the intention setting. So, how much time do you waste on being busy? And when I say being busy, I'm talking about busy work that may not be as important as other things that you should be doing. And I'll admit it, we all do this, and I'm one of them. How many times have you spent just your entire afternoon responding to all of those emails, even if they're not all really important or critical, or attending those meetings that really aren't important and you really could have just declined and made it into a meeting? This is where we need to be very focused on intention setting. And this was something that I didn't realize that I was lacking, was having a sense of intention of what I was going to be doing for the day. So one of the exercises that we learned in the Forge was that we should set an intention every single day. And part of this practice for me was writing down an intention and setting what are the top 3 goals that I have for myself that I want to accomplish today. And I needed to make sure that those top 3 goals aligned to whatever the intention was. And if those priorities were not aligned with my intention, then I needed to go back to the drawing board and figure out what were the real tasks that I needed to work on for the day. So my example for you is I have an intention for today. And today, the things that I'm going to be working on are social media posts, and I'm also going to be working on my podcast reporting. The reason that I'm doing this is I'm setting the intention that I can make a bigger impact on the world. And I also want to increase the sales in my business, and this is through my marketing initiatives. So you can see I'm not just blindly working on things that don't relate back to an intention, or I'm not working on things that I think are going to move some other goal for the day forward. I've set a very clear goal of what it is that I want to do and why I want to do it. So I'm going to challenge you the next time you spend so much time working on something that's not important, like maybe cleaning out the cupboard or doing something that is lower on the priority list, actually sit down, write your intention, ask yourself why it is that you're trying to do it. And the other thing is that intention will likely revolve around your vision. So for me, if I'm trying to help empower people, I'm thinking about how that's going to empower people through my podcast. Am I talking about things that are actually going to help them to showcase their strengths? And if not, I go back to the drawing board and I come up with another intention for the day. Point number 3 is if you want to be able to influence people, you have to understand their basic human needs and you have to be able to do a value matching exercise. And I will get into exactly what this means. So here are the basic human needs that you may or may not know about. The first one is love and affection. There's certainty and safety. There's action and adventure, growth, impact, and significance. So these are some of the key areas that people really value. And when you're thinking about whether or not you can influence them or motivate them, it really has to come back to what is the key value that they're leaning on right now, or what is the key human strength, or what is the key human need that they're looking at right now. For some people, they do value impact and they may also value love and affection, but the thing that may come off most strongly could be certainty and safety. So you'll use that to your advantage. So let's give some examples here. If I tell someone to do something and I tell them, I'll give you and your team a pizza party in order for achieving this goal, that's not going to be very valuable to them. It's probably not going to inspire or influence them in any type of a way. But if you look at some of their values, or if you look at their basic human needs, this will help give you some direction on what it is that you can do to try to help influence them. So if I know that someone like Chris is an impact person, I'm going to help use that in order to influence him to get things done. If I need him to do something like influencing people on his team in order to get a product built, then I'm going to think about what is it that's going to make an impact and what are the things that he's really going to care about. So for him, I may talk about what an impact it would make if he helped build out this product. It's going to impact the company positively. It's going to help make a difference in the lives of the customers. And I also know that he's interested in music. So if it's a product and if it's something related to music, I can use that as a strength as well to help value match with him. One other good example I have of this is when my daughter did not want to practice her guitar. Before this value matching exercise, I would just try to talk about how it's important for my daughter to practice guitar because she can get better and she can perform, but that wasn't something that was really important to her. So if I go back to the value matching exercise, I can think about what she does care about. So for her, even though she doesn't know it in the moment, something that's important to her is growth. So she loves to learn, and one of her favorite subjects is math. And so what I learned was I could have conversations with her around things that were related to math when we talked about practicing guitar. So I would talk to her about fractions. I would talk to her about how you could add the different measurements together or the notes together. And this actually made it more exciting for her. So this is a really simple example, but this is one way that you can take the basic human needs that someone has and do that value matching exercise so you can influence them to do something that you're hoping that they'll get done. And the fourth biggest thing that I took away from the Forge was understanding what stops you from getting what you want. Many times it comes down to us getting in our own way from getting the things that we want due to fear, maybe fear of failure, feeling uncomfortable with change, or having that accountability that we need. So in order for me and my teammates to move through and be able to accomplish the goals, we had to understand what it was that was holding us back and what we could do to move forward to reach those goals. So for me, when I was not doing my podcast, even though I said that was one of my goals, I was dealing with discomfort of not being good at it, fear of what people would think, and wondering if my ideas were actually important enough. What I ended up doing was I used accountability by talking to my accountability buddy, or my swim buddy as we call it. I broke it down into manageable chunks. So we do use some ideas from the Agile framework where we break things down into smaller chunks. And I measured what was planned versus the actual work that I got done. So what are the things that are holding you back from achieving the goals that you want? Do you have a fear of failure? Do you have a fear of success? Do you just have a discomfort towards discomfort? If any of those things are holding you back, it's important to identify them and then start putting some steps in place so that you can overcome it. I know one of the biggest things for most people is the accountability piece. So if you can find a friend or someone else that can hold you accountable, that's going to be a huge step in the right direction. So let's go ahead and recap the lessons learned that I have from the Forge program. So the first one is that it's important to have a vision because you want to make sure that you're following your desired path. If you don't have a vision, then go ahead and create one. The second one is that setting an intention for the day is so important. Your intention is going to map somewhat to your vision. So if you're working on things, if you're working on tasks or you're working on something without an intention, you may be moving further away from the goals that you're hoping to achieve. And then it's important to understand the basic human needs if you want to influence others. Make sure that you're doing the value matching exercise so that you're talking about the things that are important to them. And last but not least, understand what's preventing you from getting what you want and put steps in place like accountability buddies or making sure that you're measuring your progress in order to reach your goals. I wanted to say a huge thanks to Chris Williams for creating this immersive experience and for helping me to grow more than I could have ever imagined over the past year. If you're someone who wants to make an impact, or if you're someone who has big personal or professional goals that you want to achieve, this program is for you. Another reason that you may want to join is if you're someone who wants to be a better leader, then this program is a great program to join. So I'll leave the link to the program in the show notes. Don't forget to check that out if you're interested. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you'll enjoy my one-on-one coaching and my Get Hired book. Go ahead and check them out in the show notes. Until next time, stay inspired and have a great day.